Hello, everyone. The first test in any class is often difficult to try to gauge what to expect, but particularly in an AP class. So I want to give you a few pointers about how to prepare for the test and then give you some sample multiple choice questions to take a look at. To, you always want to begin with being organized, and hopefully you already have pulled together everything that we have done for the semester. The easiest way to do this is to go back to the assignment guide and look for each assignment, make sure that you have it. If it was something that you did on the computer, I would strongly suggest that you go ahead and print it out so you can have everything together, but that's up to you. And we'll begin with the very first day of class. You had some omnivore questions, and we got through most of those, or about half of those, and we'll discuss what to do with the ones we didn't get to in class on Thursday. For homework, you had omnivore vocabulary. That's been turned in and turned back to you, so you should have that. We come down to drop down, and you should have some notes on seed germination. So any notes that you've taken in any of the classes, whether they're drop down classes or regular classes, are all fair game. Now, sometimes there will be things that I've added on the assignment guide. For example, this organics healthier question mark, which is a link to an article. If I did not assign that article specifically as homework or in class to read and highlight, then it is not fair game on the test. That means it's just was something extra. Doesn't mean to ignore it, but certainly it doesn't mean that there will be questions on the test. All right, you did read and respond to the piece on king corn and drought, so yes, that would be included. I already told you several times photosynthesis and cellular respiration are certainly going to be on there. You have handouts from about GMOs. GMOs will most certainly be on there. And then we had that whole session sitting outside talking about the laws of thermodynamics and food chains and 10% rule. I have added a screencast that I'd made last year, which won't be identical to that, but it will review that same information and would be helpful to take a look at if you find screencasts to be helpful. And let's see, biogeochemical cycles. Now you went to the web for that information, but we then talked about it, highlighted those terms that were significant. Certainly that diagram for the nitrogen cycle. You have the quiz that was turned back. Just because we had that quiz doesn't mean those would be the only questions that I would ask about the biogeochemical cycles. You need to go ahead and revisit carbon cycle, water cycle, and the nitrogen cycle, and you should be prepared to see a different diagram than the one that you saw on the quiz. I would suggest doing a Google image search, look at several different images for the cycles and make sure that they make sense to you. All right, soil testing, the lab. And again, just don't rely only on reviewing the quiz. Take a look over the whole lab. Anytime you have a lab, you want to be asking those questions. What did we do? How did we do it? And why did we do it? You've got the terminology, notes from the TED Talk on soil, and the terminology that we discussed in small groups in class and came to a consensus on the things that were significant about each of those. Always looking for connections. How do you connect these terms with omnivore? How do you connect, how do you connect it with the soil lab? Always looking for connections. You did a little bit of math practice, and we haven't gotten very far on that yet, but you should be able to do basic math. Let's see. Sustainable farming versus industrial farming. You had handouts on that. We're going to talk about that and your charts on Thursday, and also go over the couple of pages on that we have not reviewed yet. All of that is material that could end up on the test. Now, journal entries. What about those? In most cases, journal entries are a lead up to something that we will be talking about later, so that what is included on the journal entry itself is not included on the test. So you do not have to have your journals to look back over. All of these things, as you're reviewing them, the ideal situation is not to just look at the notes or the handouts once again. It is to pull things out, put it in a different format. If you're good with index cards, if you like to put things on a folded over sheet of paper and so that you can test the term and then the definition, then the definition, then the term. Always remember to use examples. I've mentioned this before and I will say it again and again. Try to say the things out loud. Try to team up with somebody and discuss. Try to teach it to your dog or cat. Whatever you need to do to be able to say these things out loud. Now, the test itself will follow the AP exam format, and that is that it will be partially multiple choice and partially free response. I'm going to run through three samples of multiple choice questions for you and talk about some strategies. First of all, the multiple choices will always have 5 potential answers, 5 options. So here's question number 1. Salinization means, and you have A, B, C, D, or E. Right away, you look and you see that E is all of the above. So you want to start the process of elimination, and you're looking at these things and you're looking at the verbs, you're looking at what it's saying. Gradual accumulation of salts in upper soil layers. Gradual, yes, you know it's that. Accumulation of salts, you know it's that. And upper soil layers, well, I had you look at Google Images, and what did you see in the Google Images of salinization? You saw all that white on the surface. That was certainly in the upper soil layers. So I would put a little check mark next to that. That one sounds good. B, large amounts of irrigation water leaches salts to deep soil layer. Well, we didn't really talk about the salinization being a problem deep down in the soil. I'm not so sure about that one. Gradual accumulation of salts in lower soil layers. Okay, here's deep and lower. That's basically the same thing. Still not ringing any bells. Steady percolation of salty water through soil layers. Well, if it's steadily percolating, that means it's moving through and it's not sticking around. So that's not going to cause the soil to become salty. There's nothing there about it accumulating. So that one's definitely eliminated. Since that one's definitely eliminated, and since the B and C are talking about lower soils and the A is talking about upper soils, then that means E is eliminated because you can't possibly have A, B, and C. Since B and C are very similar, leaving A, your first initial, hopefully, inclination to choose A is then verified and you would write A. You're welcome to write all over these questions and cross things out as you eliminate them, put question marks next to them. You definitely want to work with the question. Number 2, which of the following combinations provides more than half of the world's calories? Now, this is not something we explicitly talked about in class. You may need to rely upon some notes that you took, what you looked at in Omnivore's Dilemma, and you can inadvertently you can piece together some clues from things we did talk about in class, even though we weren't explicit. So, following combinations, half of the world's calories. Based on what you did read in Omnivore's Dilemma, you probably will want to pick A or B because both of them include corn. And that's a good guess. Since there was so much emphasis on corn, I think that would eliminate C and D. And if it eliminates C and D, we still have E to contend with, but let's concentrate on A and B. Okay, corn and wheat. All right, so corn and wheat have both the same answers. So that brings us to soybeans and rice. We certainly talked about soybeans quite a bit in the class because it's an example of a legume. It's used when crop rotation in Maryland. But you need to think for a moment globally, and globally, which do you think there is a greater quantity of, rice or soybeans? This is a case where you may end up narrowing it down to two choices. It gives you a 50-50 chance. And you're just going to have to go with the one that you feel most strongly about. The answer here is B, and certainly it's not none of the above. Now, number 3, here's a style of question that you might not be familiar with. It's still multiple choice. This is quite common in the AP testing, and what they'll do is that, as you can see, you have Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, and 4, so you have all of those as options. Soil conservation methods include which of the following? Before you even look at your selections down here, answer next to each of these what you think. Is rotational planting, does that help the soil? Yes. Does intercropping help the soil? Yes. Plantation agriculture. We never use that term, and it's very possible that there's going to be terminology on tests that are not explicitly the same as what we've used in class, but should be clues there that can help you. Think of what you know about plantations. Plantations are very, very large farms, and so you're going to have monocultures there. You think of cotton, you think of sugar. So that's certainly not a soil conservation method if it is using monocultures. So I would say no to plantation agriculture. Conservation irrigation. We did talk about sustainable irrigation. Sustainable and conservation. Conservation means to conserve water. That is and we know that that helps the soil, helps reduce salinization. So that one is viable. So yes to 1, 2, and 4. Now you go and you look down here to see if you had chosen 1, 2, and 4, is that an option? Ding, 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 ding. Here it is, D. Go ahead and put your answer as D. If you were to look down here and the combination you had chosen was not there, then you need to go back and rethink what you had considered up here. So also on the test will be free response questions, and basically they are a style of short answer questions. They have to be written in complete sentences. You may not use lists, you may not use bullet points. Initially, on a first couple of tests, they're not going to include as broad a swath of information as they will later on as we add more information to pull from. So they're going to be fairly straightforward in these first couple of tests, and just consider them as you would a short answer question on any other test. So review, talk this stuff out, say it out loud, and good luck.